Good afternoon, Gambians. My name is Larry Sise. I have on my right Mamanding Kuyate, better known as Johnson Kuyate, and on my left, Lamin Mane. These are my colleagues from UDP, and we are at Eco TV International. This is our very first program with Eco TV International, and as per our agreements with them, we will make this a current affairs program covering about 5 areas. Area 1 will be the 2020 versus the 2024 Constitution. Area 2 will be the IEC and election integrity. Area 3, corruption and impunity. Area 4, identity politics. In other words, tribalism. And Area 5, weekly trending issues and topics. As you know, we have, this is, by the way, the disclaimer here. This is my first time moderating anything on any platform. So we'll do it bravely. When we fall, we'll rise up and take it up from there. As you know, the government has introduced a draft constitution to replace the 2020 constitution. But before we get into that topic, I would like these gentlemen to introduce themselves to you. I'm sure you know who they are from different platforms, but all the same, let them introduce themselves. Johnson.
My name is Mamanding Kuyate. I'm a retired civil servant, and I am also a very good, convinced member of the UDP. And I'm very grateful that I'm here today. And with that, I will send my greetings to your audience. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Right, thank you very much. I am Lamin Mane. I am the UDP's Deputy Secretary for Foreign Affairs and the Diaspora. I used to be an international civil servant working with the African Development Bank, but now I'm retired and back home and fully with the UDP. So greetings to all our listeners and viewers, and we hope this is the first of many programs to come. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you, Lamin and Mamanding. Now let's start our discussions with Lamin on the 2020 versus 2024 Constitution. We have decided as a political party to call the 2020 Constitution the People's Constitution.
People's Constitution, yes.
And the 2024 Constitution as the Barrow Jallow Constitution. Lamin, by training, is also a lawyer, and he will lead the discussions on this topic as we go along. Thank you. Lamin.
Yeah, thank you very much, Larry. You know, as you said, the 2020 draft was the people's draft. The Gambia government adopted the CRC Act, and Barrow was empowered to appoint virtually all of the people sitting on the CRC, the commissioners. He appointed the chair of the commission. The Chief Justice appointed the deputy chair, and all the other remaining commissioners were appointed by Barrow. So basically, these are people he has confidence in, who he believes can draft a constitution for the country. Why did we take that route? Because basically, the constitution is for the entire country to manage our affairs over a long period of time, as long as possible. So it should reflect the views and aspirations of all the country. That's why we don't trust any particular group of people in the country to draft the constitution on their own. So we try to make it as inclusive as possible, bring in as many people representing the different sections of society, and we have something that will work for everybody. So the people who were appointed to the CRC are very competent people with integrity, and Barrow himself attested to that. That's why he appointed them. They sat for a very long time and drafted a constitution for us. When they were through with it, they put it through a very extensive and comprehensive and inclusive consultation. So they consulted everybody in the country, basically. all the political parties, all the religious groupings, the national parliament, the ordinary Gambian. They went to all these villages and hamlets in this country, consulted everybody.
And civil society.
And civil society, of course, yes. So when every Gambian within the country was consulted, they said, now, we have a significant chunk of our population that lives outside the country. But they are also Gambian, and they contribute significantly to this country. But even if they didn't contribute a cent, they are Gambians, and they deserve to have their say in the adoption of our constitution. So they went out into diaspora to consult with the diaspora as well. That constitution was overwhelmingly accepted by the Gambian people. And it went to Parliament for adoption. And Barrow and his clique, his burgeoning NPP at the time, decided to kill the constitution, the draft constitution. Why? Primarily because the constitution said the president can serve for a maximum of 2 terms. That was the elephant in the room.
2 terms of 5 years.
Of 5 years, which is a maximum of 10 years. And he didn't like that. That's why he killed the constitution, because he wanted to stay there ad vitam aeternam. And he said, no. And remember, this was the guy who, when he came to power, said, I am going to stop this. 10 years, man tam fula doranne mba soronnale constitution soronna mo te mo tambino lo ko dek I will for more beja. So he decided that nobody can do more than 2 terms. So he was going to lock the constitution so that nobody can even amend it easily to take away the 2-term limit. And when he got into the power, and the trappings of power got to him, he said, hey, wait a minute, this is quite good here. I don't want to go. He said, no. We got rid of Jammeh because we don't want any imperial president. We want a president who's going to come for 2 terms and you go, and somebody else comes. And you know why that's important? If you have somebody who comes for just maximum 2 terms, 1 or 2 terms, the ministers he appoints, the top civil servants he appoints, etc., will know that they have 5 years or 10 years maximum, and they will leave. And when they leave, there will be accountability. We will go back and check what they did right, what they did wrong, and we'll hold them accountable for their actions. And to compound all of that, to make it even better, the 2020 Constitution said, when you come to power, the president, the vice president, his cabinet, senior civil servants, etc., you will have to declare your assets. So we know when you come to power, what are you coming with? And when you leave, you tell us what you're leaving with. Because we are entrusting our budget to you. We are giving you our resources to manage. So when you come, tell us how much money you have, how many assets you have, and when you leave, you tell us. So that we know that you haven't embezzled our funds. You haven't taken our money to enrich yourself. We entrust you with the responsibility of developing the country. That's why I give you those public positions. So when you come, you develop the country, you do your part, and let somebody else continue. We are not giving you a blank check to come and enrich yourself. So that's why we want to know how much you commute and how much you live with. And also, we said to him in the draft constitution of 2020, there are certain positions, when you appoint people to those positions, it will go to Parliament for vetting. And the rationale behind that is that we don't want to have any more people who are going to be yes men to the president. People who are going to be there because they know that they owe their position to the president, and if the president goes, they go, they do exactly what he wants. No. We want competent men and women in this country to man those positions.
Of course, men and women of integrity and
exactly.
high professional
Exactly.
standards.
That's what we want. People who have the competence, who have the integrity to hold those positions, and who can speak truth to power, who can tell him, Mr. President, yes, we heard you, but I don't think this is the best way. Let's do it differently. They can stand up and offer advice on the right way to do things. And we can have competent people running this country for the benefit of every Gambian. So we say, so when you appoint, that person has to go to Parliament, and Parliament will vet and make sure that he's a competent person. If he's not, Parliament will reject the appointment. All of this is to build in accountability into the system, to make it work for everybody. We don't want an imperial president who is going to select his people and they do exactly as he wishes. No, we want the president, his ministers, and everybody to be accountable to the Gambians. We have to move away from the mindset where people fear presidents and governments. It should be the other way around.
To a point where they can't tell him the truth.
Exactly. The president should fear the Gambian people because we elect them, we appoint them, we pay their salaries. So they are accountable to us. We hire them. They are our employees, our servants. So that's the way the Constitution of 2020 was built to ensure that accountability into the system and to ensure transparency and competence. All of those put together, but I didn't want that.
Yeah.
So he connived with some MPs, gave some people some money, gave some people some cars, etc., and then they threw it out. When they threw it out, they went partying at State House. We all saw that. And people like Majanko Samusa, I don't want to name names, so I have to name that one, went out saying, yes, they killed it and it's in the dustbin, blah, blah, blah.
And they were celebrating.
They were celebrating at State House. A constitution on which we spent $116 million.
And 2 years to formulate.
2 years hard work of very competent people. People that he appointed. And he betrays them and the Gambian people. So we said, no, that constitution is ours, the Gambians. We had the people we trusted to draft it. We approved it. Because even after the consultations, they put all those ideas together and they brought it back and said, any more final comments? And the final comments were made. So these people are very transparent and very upfront. Barrow and his people didn't want that. So they just threw it out, celebrated, and waited. Until last year, they brought about the Barrow draft. They went and sat in their corner and just took it apart, took the 2020 draft apart, and they brought in their own constitution, their own draft, the Barrow Dawda Jallow draft.
And Lamin, you know, one of the things that they did, they reviewed the 2020 draft and took out about 20 parts of it,
key points.
Portions of it.
Yeah, 20 key points.
Including the chapter 5.
Yes. On transparency and accountability.
Good governance, accountability.
Yeah.
But the important thing is they introduced 20 changes into the 2024 Barrow Jallow
draft.
And
these are major changes.
These are major changes.
Because there are other smaller changes.
And that's why we say he's trying to create an imperial president.
Yes.
But in so doing, he's also betraying the trust of Gambians.
Exactly.
Because we have this saying in UDP to say, corruption is the single most significant betrayal of the public trust.
Yeah.
When the public trusts you and give you a position, and you betray that trust, there is nothing more serious than that.
Yeah. Exactly. So just to, I know time is short, just conclude on that. This gentleman and his Minister of Justice took out a whole chapter out of that draft, which is chapter 5, which says when you come to power, you will have to declare what you've got, and when you go, you have to tell us what you're living with, so we know that you have embezzled our resources. He took that out. He took out the part where it says that the ministers and the senior civil servants will be vetted in Parliament. He took out that part, and when you look at that, also he added that when he goes, if he retires during his term, if he falls sick, or God forbid he dies as a president, his vice president will continue his term to the end. He said, we do not have an American system of a ticket. If you want that, we have a ticket where the president and vice president are elected together. Otherwise, we have 90 days. The vice president will take over for 90 days. After 90 days, he will organize an election and we appoint a new president, because we, the Gambians, choose our president, not you as president. You don't choose another one for us.
In other words, there is no succession provision.
Exactly. Well, in his weird way, there is a succession planning in the sense that he can appoint anybody he likes to become vice president. Yeah. And then if he decides to go, that person will take over. Yeah. So technically, he can appoint his wife, his son, his uncle or anybody to become vice president, and nobody can control it because he says his appointments will not be vetted by parliament. So if the constitution of Barrow, the Barrow draft passes, he can appoint anybody and nobody will be able to refuse it. So which means he can technically appoint his son, his daughter, his wife, even his mother to become president, to become vice president. And then he can retire and that person takes over. That is bringing in a monarchy. We don't want a monarchy, we want a presidency, not a monarchy. So all of those things put together, and many more, which I wouldn't go into all the rest. I'll let other your colleagues also come in on that. But that makes the Barrow draft unacceptable for us at the UDP. So we're going to stop that. And that is why they know they're going to stop it. They withdrew it from the March session and moved it to June. Well, June will come. And we'll be still waiting. We'll still stop it. So I think I'll leave that for the moment.
Just to add before I bring in Johnson, what is interesting about this 2024 Barrow Jallow draft is the allegation that they brought in a South African lawyer to draft it for them. Now, if you know South Africa with their apartheid history, you wouldn't be surprised why they brought a lawyer like that to set up sort of we call it an imperial presidency, because this is way more than an executive president. If 2024 passes, we are creating an emperor. He can do what he wants to do, and when he wants to do it, who he wants to do it with. Johnson.
And thank you so much. Just before you go, because that will be worse than the 1997 Constitution.
Yes.
He will have more powers than Jammeh had, and we all know the powers that Jammeh had and how he used it. So if we give more powers to anybody, we're killing ourselves.
Okay, thank you. Now, I was going to bring this to the layman's level. I agree with all that's been said, and I want to reinforce it. Here was a constitution being cooked by people that were appointed by Mr. Barrow himself, who went to the kitchen and took the entire population of the Gambian people as ingredients to prepare their plate. And they went round, and all those were asked to tell them their inputs. The food was ready, but they said, before we go, according to the law, let's take it to Parliament for them to taste and see if this food is effectively palatable or not. By the time it came to Parliament, there was some, he himself said it, there were some briberies that he did which didn't allow the food to come to Parliament, and they threw it out. Now, some years later, they went in and brought in by themselves behind the kitchen, nobody knows where, they brought in other food which is prepared by a tainted person, because we know South Africa is de Klerk, John Christian Smuts,
Vowed,
who prepared their constitution. And that's a constitution that was fought. And we know that such constitutions effectively brought havoc and chaos in Nigeria. Such constitutions brought chaos and havoc in other countries. Like in Sudan, actually, it's a constitutional issue. Sierra Leone, constitutional issue. Mali, constitutional issue. Now, if we bring that here, it means we are creating another chaos for us, which we are not going to be part of it. Because we wouldn't like to be refugees. We wouldn't like to be refugees and have our children somewhere. So this is exactly the main interest that we have here. And the most important part of another issue that draws attention is why bribe people to vote against the Constitution.
that you financed.
Yes, that you financed. Yeah. And now we identify a date that you choose, then you push that date. Is that a way of, again, giving yourself time to bribe people?
Exactly.
Question that we ask ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Johnson. Thank you, Lamin. You know, in my last appearance in another platform, some older person of mine sent me a message on the Constitution. Mm-hmm. It was a voice message. You know what he said? He says, Larry, ala fo nyulie ko Gambia be la kopar ndawalo bondil ya di la pour ye ñing constitution o dada ye constitution o dada ya tabi ya londi tabulo kan comme Johnson ka fo ñamen femman tuje foka dom ako baro e bolo saba afan koto akile mobe la fendo ako ala fu moli wonya ka foko ni mumobe tabirolti mo kilin ka ba be doma I think it's a good analogy on the constitution. Now let's go to the issue of the IEC. I think it is very clear that party leader last press conference Folako Aliou Mamar Ndiaye la time be bawol barako asila finina Gambianol sila finina baro e bula loi noma ay moke IEC chairman oti me IEC la loi qualification also he implored Barrow to appoint somebody who has the requisite qualifications of being chairman. And what are those qualifications? Either you are qualified to be appointed a Supreme Court judge, or you are qualified to be appointed a High Court judge. And ntol wole munna position not. But the thing about the IEC is that there is a credibility gap that Gambians ought to know about. And what is that credibility gap? The elections are conducted largely based on attestation letters from Alcalo. Ilanying Electoral Act, ye diasporal bali carte fayola, bari attestation no tuje. Attestation no nyin na tuje o benga longa ikake men kam. It is revealed and there is no need to go back on it. Bari Gambian ol sa longo, it's a way of interfering with the integrity of the electoral process. The second point I want to lay on the table is this 301 million that he disbursed to the IEC. 300 million, afangala auditor ko, wo kodo beta ta IEC dokula la bank account ol leko. Kabri ye nyinin ka pour ye bank account ol di la ya pour sa je ko kodo nyin keta nyame ibe bank. Hani bi femmam fo wo 300 million.
Exactly.
So ntola issue is I owe 300 million a dila mune kama because amanke ko inyanta IEC tamandila budgeto men amanke ot. So I 300 million dila mune kama. The third one is ni electiono keta. Komi masembe keta nyami. Ni electiono keta. Electiono banta. Karteo nyanta kasabila a fighter dame. Amanya natala daoda. Anu molma nyanna sonna ka foko. Nsi karteo fay masembe yeta kasabi mansa konko. Masembe ni mansa konko tema. Dolfe amanjam fabar. Dolfe is a lifetime. Kuko basic enoje. Ngaje kabrim mol manso ngayeta kasabi mansa konko. Ngaje menketa. Ipoita. So electiono munyineti Gambianol ye Gambianol allow lafta many yen nyaton kaya. Yes. Electiono kuna fenyo moleti. Ni momo ka bem balla wala nyanta balanna la nga foko halla buda tekela. Ndolle ni lafta na mol men nyafa nyekije. The third or fourth issue is mol men kana banko kan ka carte o fay. Amira in 2021 election, UDP petition o menke Supreme Court. Petition o nyi ya itandile ko po dol keta election o kona manyan nakel. Kabring registration o soronta, wato soronta. Ngaje ko molbe register kan. Dol ka register 1-2 in the morning after the fact. So wasifa lafta momo be kela IEC akana son wo kusi fale ke kotek nte parti leader man nyimfo bar nte fe nyim mol men bebe IEC be nyanta bondi la je mo kuto lena mo kutol me alon ko nyanta loi tamandila nyanta tamala nyam.
Yeah, ngamira the petition I made DJ is that called mo jama ka register outside of the period. Ni ko nyanta ka close by 5 dol kana suto e register. Sato dol bije mol men register ta je wole siata hadi sate balti. Saten ding me yalan ko mo dante ne ka taraje ni da register on jube wole ka siya sate bati. I mean, it's crazy mo buko mira. Fen jamal le funtita je iko ya bay simply because until ma fo jojo e ko salam alaikum. But until ma fo salam alaikum bari man sekunda la lawyer na ta jele sabuta kalamale. Ni am ba kalama lawyer tina jele bari kumna nan tel man kontandiro ke bari kontandiro nga kele nak afole ko ama wuri kende kele anin kuru manna.
But to add on to that, the major point of their argument was the president was not served with the papers.
In person.
In person.
Yeah.
How do you serve a president court papers in person? You have to go through a channel.
Yeah.
And normally in all diplomatic circles, the channel is through the chief of protocol. The summons was submitted accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah.
They said they were not aware, but on the date of the trial, the lawyers appeared on time.
Yeah.
So somebody is playing games with us on this thing. But the bigger point is Gambians must be allowed to choose their leaders.
Yes.
If they want Barrow to continue as president, they have the prerogative of doing that. If they want changes, they should be allowed to vote for change. Ntolko nga change ke. That brings us to the next topic, which is corruption. Hello, UDP meta corruption of falal. Na various appearances dulal to taring ba fokan ne drong ye newspaper ele wolum isi corruption ko wajije.
Janni be corruption o mal. Nsudo man do ngako ndem fayinto.
Okay.
Because yalong pasi le biring na masembe gagné. Baro ya sefel non ka fay congratulations. Ako baro ya ka ko nyina nyanta kala démocratie. Nga carte fay min gagneta yalo ka gagneta le min boyta yalo ka boyta le. Ning IEC tamandiro ka nyama. Election bebe tala wala nyama. So nga fere ke 2026 election ay ke o nyama. IEC yanta min kala ayake. Kuru yaka na soto je koteke. Ni wokete mo be sita do ga disino kay seneya ay banka ro kono be gata na hajura ta kudul tabato. So akayo ko sayin bawo IEC chairman o tata. Yenta le chairman ko to tombon. Mo tombo mi ya lonko nya lonko mo tilindin mo tombo mi ya lonko mo tala tilu nyinin kala mo tombo mi ya lonko qualify tale mi se do ko keno nyama and nga electional ke sport counting ko mo e bang diam kana soto bata kana soto je wali kana soto je mbe ka wala nyini mo be se IEC e tama pour electional ta nyama bani IEC man tama abina problème mo sama mo be no mo problème mo la nyim banko ka so wala tin nabi ntol kamen fay mo tombo mba aluma war njaay tata mo tombo mi yan kabe IEC samano la nyamale bari fanan nak sa kala mutako kamen fo su nyaro banta nyim banko kan min kita ma sembe wala be kala banko be ko 2026 mo tana carte su nyala koteke mdun tebatu na fo so mo na resolution fonye min kita wala mo bir nga carte banta la nga konti jele nga fo mo be into mal be kala wala nyam la solo fa la jero
Thank you, Lamin. Thank you, Mamande. Now, the next topic is corruption and impunity. Corruption and impunity.
Yes.
Now, Nal Hakilo Obama, as far back as 2022, UDP Kalien Nako Nyulparetan Banko Fembetol Be Wafilal. At the time, this suggestion was denied vehemently. But today, we can sit and say we are in the threshold of a situation where our vital national assets are being mortgaged. Because among recycling, they are basically mortgaging them.
Yeah.
and borrowing against them for future streams of resources. But ngawfo ato men na iman song iko be kumakensen fall. So I will just run you down going back to Wawato 2022 because nganyim 4 April, March, April. Nko security port airport la security contract million tower was the value of the contract, 160 million. Yadi company la na immigration bije na police bije na army bije iman contract ko dila de lela jumale atin na ngi ninka woketa ning OICC lol $41 million dollar tan nan ninkili
million
wotata $2.40 billion isle iko laminsi woto jansa because attending ila minister janjunta wala Gambian call be along. The point to make is 41 million until fe silo da jawe atala amanyan na kela wanya.
In fact, it's 150 million.
Yeah. 150 million.
Yeah. 41 at the airport.
Yeah. 41 at the airport. Fatma Taba Baro Fanana Foundation, 35 million. And it be a month for water fund. COVID-19, Ministry of Health, 600 million. Femman for J. GPA, ila unit killing, 400 million.
Yes.
Femman for J. National Disaster Management, 100 million. Hani bi femman for water fund. Iba jibela drone, iba investigation all abukabang. Media contract call. Eco TV International, unfortunately, Almantara wato maybe nal bije nun den alfa nalbe domandi soto la 40 million. The media contract is $40 million. The renovation of the airport, 41 million. You can highlight on that one also. Tetambita jelale tumandoba to mamanding fana. Ya abenyamen nunta na abenyamen sai. Vice President la Kedula, ikoba renovate la nyang 63 million. Ando ya renovate le kabrin baro botaje. Along kabrin baro ganyeta 2016. Ibe State House renovate kan baro tartaje. Kabrin baro botaja tata State House ya renovate. Ngamera Vice President Fulaya use. Kabri na party leader Alaji Hussein appoint as Vice President, ya renovate koteke atekati tabe tarlala suwokon. And that is the measure of us versus them. Amanta. So sai pareta renovate la koteke 63 million. Bar Kabrim Barara Juf, late Barara Juf, may he rest in peace. Kabrim Barara appoint a Vice President. Ye la korda renovate le Banjunundi. Because akabe Banjunundi na mansa unyindu. So between 2017 in sign, ye nyindula renovate le sinya saba in Sanji site. So you renovated a place within an 8-year period, spend hundreds of millions of dollars on it, and then after 8 years, you go renovate la koteke. Ning OIC motol fana, ye ikoye $100 million le dollars le use puruka OIC motokutol sang. Social Security Housing Finance Corporation, ye 9.8 million euro, ye wole donto mola puruka bosol sang, bos kutol 100 bosses. 9.8 million euros is almost $175 million. Many aloko retirees la kodolem, you use that to buy buses, exposing the company to huge risks. So niaje mbenying kuol fintindila. lafta itandi la ko nyimmolu ni ko be banku doku wala ka fo ko be banko doku kanne naali yewolu moy alila corruption o fana jibe ban ka fo ko alkalbe banku doku wala barintol fe mo dantanrebe doku kan nyim banko kan and o mo dantaw manken tolte bibi newspaper to and I am benyum fola mani kaka to I am landing there bibi newspaper to ila minister ko hanibi well newspaper ko hanibi senelal dol mela tio kodo soto iba kan hanibi sama fela binasi andun serum keta wala nya serum ko keta wala nya so sama lalu doku lalu al nyante sila lal yemira yela kunko doku ila senefengo ya doku ye tio soto ya samba pruka sang ime jono fabina sang sir ni be jola fanan ye company dole ta because kodo table nin kodo be bul nuite okel ye company dole ta woka senelal jo bar ni be senelal jola fo smartphone soto ni man smartphone soto itela kodo soto nola ni man smartphone soto ibe aremnen dole kela isila kodo soto nyam ni ela kodo soto fana ike jondi namo la woto so doye message kinya ako kabra ya jo nyin arrangement kabri ya jo I service fee men ka ko $3,000 sile nyante ete jola $37,000 isla ye 3,000 bondi je because moment nyante jola nyanta wala jola wala so alinga hakilo fay koma domandi ngajibe fonyil ka banko samba nyame banko nyanta samba la wala nyaba lami
Ria baraka nyulu ko tumuri ka fere mbafolo la min tole
yes
fanna ma ku kilo ron nebiji tiñaari kilo suñaari kilo tilembal ya kilo nyulu tumuri ka fere nyulu lak suuda ka sino le ban lare international standards ñim batil hadin silo pour ka da highway debe do ko no African Development Bank le wala mun na do ko tino pour kan sila façon do ko kilomètre kilo aka $1 million dollar million kili ka do ko won Ibrahima silla ko nyeko ate ko do min keje andum batil hadi mo kilomètre mo wonni fula do nete so ni be do ko la ayanta kala million mo wonni fula dollar million mo wonni fula wala nyanta do ko la 22 million 22 million barate ko dollar million keme million talluli wala keje so mata in surf ya do ko dollar million kilometer ata do ko kilometer ya do ko million woro ani wuli keme sey dollar ya do ko won
almost $7 million
per kilometer come on yenta min do ko la million tan mu wonni fulala ya do ko million keme million tallulu amunta dollar million keme million mu wonni sey wala yemanta atata min tole o kola fana e ka fina OIC secondary roads OIC la silande on min make batil hadindi o fana kilometer talulu ni yasoto je ko nyento do kula o silande go secondary roads nyolu ninga ba nyama pour ka wol doku is about $250,000 ka doku wala
per
kilometer ba ta ko kilometer yo fana do ko $1 million lela
800,000
difference and yo silo ko nyamen ama wul ke ma fulo fa mo 6 million silo ban kati hani batil hari ni media kala muta bi ba do kulanu beretije bero min bije wala jamme silo min do kuno bero min bije beri ya tay e ko bero janjam silo ka nyinto be mburu ta buru wala ko nan kana ka jurma mo leje e ka wala denku e jibo ka ya denku e jibo ka fuyi badina man wala wala ka ni be isla son ko ka bero wala keje imam bere keje so sanjidan tan nyato mbayel silo biti nyala nyami o be corruption le asab ning aba nyama million tallulu dollar million tallulu ni mo tirli ngol sur ka do ku jang silo do kule birim batil hadi birim sting kona jang fo tambe kudan almost fita basse silo yental fo basse o nam fita basse at least abetambila ban sangna
Yeah.
bari to liyo ko dandi kilometer mo wanni fula dam mato kato ni nga ba nyama yin silo be non je jamme min do kuno silo be tayari ibe sila do dala je on tu len fula ko take dala je i tema je is de bayrin strip ke je so sila fi sila be to ta ya be te yata ku ko take kato fati nyaro kala sila do dala on tu len ay ta fo almost basse so isi fo len soto len fula jang ay ta fo basse bari ko do ta ya be ta e kala do be katin kadi abul jibo kono yeb mon din ta ya kany silo ko ngado ko wala biri baka fana ko kal kany mi silo ni Allah design man beteya al yara na man beteya ning silala inda du fon ko di be ngol fa kala silo fa nga man kati ya ko design man kati nyata mil ke jaban ke je non to ngaka tan bi be munato bi il faut aller à Joko nka ben foy sukuta traffic light ji ta fly wala kala ji imaka ji sai bina ko daga na dun tero ko daga na fly over ke je ko
Yeah, at an additional cost.
Nko ko nyin silo be nyamin imanyan na pedestrian crossing kala ji e ka footbridge la ke je mo le selo kan sai ta ji kara dola pour mo le motol kana be non to bakara ten sai bi sai ko take ko wala kala ngam fo ni maso wala
Again, at an additional cost.
Again. Okay. So wasilo min tinyata je Gambia don ni manke fenti yen so julole mba jolale.
Yes.
Adoyata nyaawo nyang million tan sabani lulu dollar o yemanta jebe. Andum be jolale. Ni yo bela nyokan non. Abital fat fat tan basila. Silo min sa do ko non. Ari kilometer mo wanni fulada ma do ko wota. Tilimbal yaman tambi wala. Mbe o fola e ko say OIC meeting fa ga o sitana ne say nsula ta moto wala du meeting pour tilifula do tilifula meeting ita ta moto tan sey ni woro wala sannan o moto kilo killing e ko million tan nim fula ani wuli kemelul ya sa wala moto million tan nim fula dal so million tan nim fula ani wuli kemelul ya sa wala pour tilifula meeting so moto tan sen worowlo be sang $1 billion si wa dala so billion killing dala so million wuli killing ani million tan sey yolta ka motol sa dala so million wuli killing ani million tan sey yolta motol sa yo motol sa ti pour ki flamiti ko damma mitimo banta ya talantala nyotema la reni o million wuli killing million tan sey yotano itara Gambia University University of the Gambia adoyata nyaaw nyang isi dinde wuli fulala scholarship sadino wala pour kara
For 4 years.
For 4 years. Isi no sol train no jele. Isi police do recruit no koteke. Isi ambulance sol san no je. Isi tractor san no je pour Sénégal. Bien ka mona moy e ko vice president ya ngi ka parliament e kay ko mona tin na sayin ñu no man ambulance sol e fon ko tractor sama na même fali e ko ha mba sankani bari ban pare fulo mi ñata bi seru sama do bina ma tractor man nanu han kadi kar tiyaro be jëm banko ka la re fannama l'hôpital man tama il faut ko dol te ka di fande nit sa sarité jara band Gambia do sa sa eta fande ban wala Edward Small Francis Teaching Hospital ni tara lu santé mo lu jube je ita ji yaje jiba kutolu e mo fula sa wala la ran kilimo kan mun ñantaw kala musoli te waye ma sa te ban santu sa tewol e sen sere to kay sama kata wulu mo biya to ko leta ñami musolu ni tingo bale faabe to fatu la ji mo mawlo.
Actually, ni ajibe fana from that perspective. Men be North Bank. Ni pareta cross lana.
Yeah.
Fuelo e ferry obat. Ni ferry o man soto yesi ya bat. Dol kabula kulunga.
Ni ngana
But ni ferry o jita woni fanike o tema nin tingoye ma nin alame ma ko sifa
sifaji andu wo feriol fon isabal tarajan nu jam men tu
jam men tu
ya bula feriol beti nyata so je ko yare dal sayen baran kadi kilindu nakata Ibrahima Silla ko ako nyina ado feri fulal sambala nan sola pawat feriol abi wala sambala nan kutamal ako ADB lebe wo jola nka to nyati ji ni wala ide ADB konta ko min sa pour ko afan ningaji am so ata fentini non be do ko no ADB ngalo gata ma nyame so man soto feriol nga si 25 iko ni simin famo sama do bina sumansi be 25 kono say ngajo fu feriol binale feriol tina so ye fanna wo fanna ma nyim banko kan tinyaro don ne bijani sunyaro nen tilimbaliya sa gambe nyanta panyini kala min na batam mbeta kanyim banko kanyin sanji konon to kono mi sonnal banka si ko de nyule wala kan ko de sanji lulu ko de ba bi nyim banko ko do to nyim banko ko government is bankrupt karifa e ka muneke e ka government treasury bills and central bank bonds e ka walta ya wafi pour ka molu jono katu ko do ma so nyim banko ko de so wo bills nyoro ni e minta 2024 it's about 17-18%. Ñina jani ñina me banna about 20%.
Yeah. Or more.
So wala na bank suñolu. Ba ko le fare banko kan jang mol man ko do sono pour ka business wala ke ka to bank su ka modo don ko do la côté ke o risque bale bi je parce que isen jolay wala be jolal par niya di masakunda la fu be jola wala so ko do ta central bank bonds ñol sa ni treasury bills ñolu ye siye bulo la ñoka nin ka ro fata yaati ka yaadi ibe mfala julu jol ken sewna wala na taxul ka kaf wala na ko wolbe ka ko lañu banko kan wala dal so ka boy am dal so la boy wo ko nak julo ka fele dorom ñina sango la january ni sayentema dollar ko san nun dal sta woro wala san ta woro wala ni fula
72.5 francs dollar
jannin ñina be banna ni mon tamé su dal sta sey so batal be ka fula dorom da batabe ka fulla doron nyima sakunda ba nyimba ko tamandino yenna porolu taya tayle e Senegal be bridge taya tayle yenna ferry service nyoli abula betinyata gamsel gamteli baba fi kulu ni afrika mona foye masakunda fonkoli masakunda mbaka tamandino wala nka boyle wala nka bata nko berin non ye gamtel lono ba karen jele ka bi jenon managing director gamtel le ka sakunda la do kula le be jono ka profito min soto social security ya buri yen fa be tinyata do manda be bankrupt e Mohamed Manjan Sambanan UDP la kan ko ñan kan Mohamed Manjan nata in less than 2 years a social security aya dada ku ko teke fo ka profito soto profit ba fo pensional ñu la jolu kaf bino so don ko ita akaintal sa yaate bay wato yemin sama bato ngawdo mo folo ya bay the same thing lebe non nawek nawe be beti nyakan no e fata yo sambana fata jo pasaka da jambo pour ka nawe pasaka wuli e fata yo bay alfa robin sin data fana bado ko kanga nyama nawe pasaka wuli aji ñul tilinte jawkale fana bay GNPC beri mambure njaabe nun jenu sawo say ka loss le soto tens of millions of dollars loss mambure njaabe ta je ya no gentleman sambana je ya baro they went from a deficit of 30 million plus to a surplus of tens of millions of dollars ofana don yo fana bay
in a span of 2 years so momon nata yep you will tamandi ko e no jetti ndi jawkere ndi ko suñu roketo buri iteta ana fola ni man do mordula soto
yes so yo si o bayi do na so be ko do be tapale la yakawol ñaan ñafi ko ha nke wafile ka to man tamale be tamale ñaadi na be ko do be suñu ra ñoko do be tamala milka tamandi no pura beteya aliyol be bay so wo kam dafa mo woli ni def me la ñun dulato ni nata yebula min nawo kede ni ko ya suña a suña ni ko en tajir na yadina when they tell you jump you just say how high. You don't ask, just how high do I jump? Well,
Janin ba di la mamandin Allah te jan sala dula kilin. Gamtel la gateway.
Yeah.
Kabrin gateway datita. It was making something like $45 million a year.
Yeah.
Ya bondi Gamtel.
Samba State House.
Samba State House.
Yeah.
Mo be jane commission la reportol jele kodo men tinyata gateway.
Yeah.
Baro nata kon telemateti. First thing be men kela gateway muru Gamtel. Bar hani bi gateway bije. Je buka audit mo buka long gateway ka menke amanya na menkel. Lafta men fola drong is this. Ilafta gamsel wafila. Iba fola le hani iba kuma furim fola koteke. Pari be fen to ibe woleto. Janni ba wafila gateway murundi je ba ka kodo men soto ya pomp Gamtel kon. Ya jibe fate tamala. Biwa be tamakan ne Cabral ba bondi laji. Cabral ya bondi je la start ka boy.
AfriCell and QCell, they are making lots of money. Look professor like Gamtel ka boy.
Yeah.
Kuruya bi bijelam. Masa kuna la kuruya wala tina no yote boy no tam Gamtel la infrastructure. Nani boy la. Sorry.
Okay. Johnson.
Nalia Krosi. Ni quand be fo jang abe saferin figos men yalon ko yesafe man sakunda la kiskisral tata ye wo figos del jube ya itan diko aman ka nyama nga mune moy man sakunda kontiyo ko wo muy la mirolote fembe be saferi mo be nyabala
Yeah.
e ka fo ko safero nying miralolo ngoti ja do you hear that well waman jakal nak because membe siri masa kunda kum fang tema afang lota ako nga député ul duku be nga moy so ni wayo ke say problème to je ko tego nga député ul duku dama bribe duku député yi ay bribe dem mune wala mo biton corruption mo illegal tinglet so lo donc pour le guide
Yeah. Na
Just walk in wrong. Yalo ni yaje nyulu beka boy ika tawle ke buta fo be boy isaji se wafino
yes.
sa ka fi male ifangol dam ma ka wa ifa fi dam male 2026 be be audit la kamen je Senegal bi ila ministre le borla ma kibe sirin jana man hani kana ka Ousmane Sonko ne jomay be do ko min naji fanan isa loko 2026 binale be audit la tiñaro be kata jan abe finti la so si wala ngay koyima
andun taka fa fananko tiñaro membe kela Gambia ni anin Senegal misal yes Senegal le wartanti ila economy le wartanti ila population le wartanti bar tiñaro membe ke kanjang
pa capita
yeah. abe Senegal la tiñaro kela dindintulunti I have said this, we have said it, and we'll continue to say it. Johnson.
No, I mean, very interesting because kewa fonya ko ni tata wulu kono. Gidi tilin ni wul be be kuntule. So mun ta ko mel be do ko kendo la jang. Be bayle. Fulan jang ko nyako atel opposition lu atel la katina masakana balan. Because I alon ko na balanta alba konti bolal. Oton sikarin de janin ja. Okay, left over. Bamba jesu.
Yeah.
Okay, to the listeners and the viewers, this is our maiden program. It will be a weekly program. As we go along, we're going to tweak it to suit the conditions that we have. We are all novices in this, and at some point, you know, when you learn something, you perfect it.
Yeah, we're learning on the job.
This is on-the-job training for us, and we are doing it through a medium that is owned and managed by a group of very young, dynamic Gambian entrepreneurs and professionals. And
with a lot of young ladies.
Yes, it's impressive. The majority staff are young ladies.
Yes. Yes, women empowerment and parity.
So you cannot empower people more than what we are seeing in Eco TV International. you should also, viewers should also know that the topics that we will be bringing in weekly will depend on what is going out there on social media, in the news, and what government is coming out with the public. So we may not stick strictly to the 5 items that we have highlighted. We may diversify it. Personally, I think everybody knows that Nawek is my Kamarakundangkol. So at some point, we're going to devote a whole segment to Nawek.
Yes.
How Nawek has contracted to Senelec, to Car Power, and the kind of financial outlays we are losing as a result of these arrangements. So ala baraka to the crew, Dabonala Timol, Ngal Konto Ngal Jai, and for Lamin and Johnson, thank you very much. We hope the kind of feedback we get from people, from the technicians in the Eco TV International setup, will give us some feedback on how we can improve the program as we go along.
Just can never conclude wrong. I just want to go along. I come in for people can send them 2 years wrong. I can follow dinul mampare do ko wala.
Yeah.
Mampare ka katoke. Ni Eco TV jambiren na tanga menji janga be mu funding ke wol young people, talented, qualified people. So this is what we need. We need to empower the youth.
Yeah.
And in addition to the name for the Musol strategy, we empower them, give them the possibility. Go get them there, out there. Empower the youth. Youth funds, women's funds, etc. So anyway, so I'm sorry to come in there, but
but it's a relevant point. I think at some point, by Tandla who the team behind this program is, and the last time party leader Nata Jang Namera, I mol hint lako, Mera the average age is around 26. so
they're very young.
Keba kumola ma korosirolek. So at some point, we are going to emphasize the need for empowering youths, and this is one way that the private sector is doing it.
Exactly.
If the private sector is doing it, I see no reason why government cannot do it. But it's a different cup of tea. Malala youth empowerment, women's empowerment, nawek bele malakeu. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Allah barak.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Allah barak.